But by that time, I was sick and tired of traveling around the world on business. Like I said, I could have retired, but I'm not one of them people that can. So 10 years ago, we started Global Drone Solutions. We're now the largest drone pilot training company in Australia. And my sales territory at that time was the Middle East. So starting in Damascus, Iran, Iraq, all the way down to New Zealand and Japan and China. And I did that for 15 years. And that's where I really got most of my skill in business.
Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Mahmood Hussein. Mahmood, thank you for taking the time to jump on the podcast today.
My pleasure, Anthony.
For those of you that are new to the podcast or don't remember how I run the podcast, I've never actually met Mahmood before. We've had a couple minutes just before we press record, but I don't know much about him, so I'll let him introduce himself and explain who he is and what he does.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. As you've introduced me, Mahmood Hussein. I was born in Pakistan, and when I was 7 years of age, my parents did the best thing they could have ever done, and they moved to Yorkshire in the UK, right? So I came from a very poor background. Anyway, as most migrants, we took the opportunity, and I got educated there, and became a mechanical engineer. I was very lucky that I got picked up by an American company called Cummins. Now, Cummins is the world's largest diesel engine manufacturer. My first job for 5 years was designing turbochargers, compressor wheel, turbine wheel. So that engineering background. But I did most of that because my father wanted me to, have some sort of skill. And his comment was, do something like an engineering degree, and I will leave you alone, right? Although deep down, I always wanted to be in sales, marketing, business development, have my own business. I had that from a very young age. Anyway, after 5 years with the company, there was an opportunity, with them to go into sales and marketing. They were setting up a brand new division, traveling around the world, setting up distribution networks and joint ventures. And that was just, down my street. So I applied and was very lucky to get it. And my sales territory at that time was the Middle East. So starting in Damascus, Iran, Iraq, all the way down to New Zealand, and Japan and China. And I did that for 15 years. And that's where I really got most of my skill in business, in that, I was evaluating organizations to become distributors for turbocharger businesses. And look, 40 years ago, turbochargers were new, right? A bit like drones are today. And so I was traveling all these countries with a new product, new market, and realizing how do I get in touch with people, because we didn't have internet. So I used to fly into, let's say, Damascus. I'd pick up the yellow pages, look for truck and engine manufacturers, or if they didn't have that, importers, and just pick up the phone and talk to them, right? Meet for a coffee, and while I was there for 2 or 3 days. But I always remember the first person knew I was new and knew nothing about the market or the country. But by the end of the day, I'd had 4 or 5 meetings. The last guy would think, wow, this guy's super smart,
Pick it up pretty quickly.
yeah, he knew everything. I knew everything about, because I'm talking to different people. Anyway, that was good life. I did that for 15 years, and set up joint ventures in China, in India, and a lot of other places. Set up an international network of distributors, and every 2 or 3 years got promoted. So I ended up being the general manager for that division. And I needed to do something else because I had 2 children. Well, I have 2 children. They're grown up now, but they were 11 and 12. And so 30 years ago, we decided that we would like to move to Australia, and I moved with Cummins, right? So early 40s, I did that for another year, and then I got bored, and that's my biggest sort of Achilles heel, really. And I thought, no, either I'm going to do something new, or I'm going to stay with them until I retire, which would be another, 20 odd years. And I was very lucky. I got headhunted by an organization called Metso Minerals. And not that go looking for big companies, but they ended up being the world's biggest in mineral processing equipment. So when you go to a mine site and you see them blast an area, big rocks coming out, Metso's job is to take that big rock and bring it down through gradual reduction down to about 6 mil, maybe even smaller. and that's how you get gold and silver and all these other products out of it. So I did that for about 6 years, but by that time I was sick and tired of traveling around the world, right? On business. So I went in my first retirement. It lasted about 2 or 3 months, and then no, not for me. So I bought another business, which I successfully grew. In 3 years, I sold that to another very large organization. Went into retirement again for a year, well, not even a year, sorry, a couple of months, and then I got approached by Deloitte to see if I'd be interested in um, head, heading up a business that they needed to turn around. So that's what I did for 2 years. I did another one for another 2 years for Deloitte, and that's where I came across drones. And like I said, I could have retired, but I'm not one of them people that can. So 10 years ago, we started Global Drone Solutions. We're now the largest drone pilot training company in Australia. We're now trying to expand into New Zealand, into the US, very shortly in the Caribbean. So there's lots of opportunities for growth. But what's basically happened is that, yes, 10 years ago, drones were new and people thought it was a toy. Now everybody knows that it's a very useful tool across broad range of industries. We started with Rio Tinto and BHP and Chevron. We're very lucky to have them as clients. Then we've trained or helped defense to get their own drone academy. We've trained and helped, TAFEs and universities to set up their own drone academies. And just recently, we've seen a big uptake in our business, and I'm trying to understand why. And I've realized what it is the war in Europe and in the Middle East. Because drones are on our TVs every day, people who thought it was going to be a flash in the pan realize, no, this is a long-term thing. So our business this year has grown by 30, 40%, admittedly, and I will come to it. Part of that is due to AI and automation. But I think a lot of that is on the drones being on the news every day. Unfortunately, not for good stuff, but it's what I think is helping the industry grow.
It's more on the top of mind of people. Most people, when they think drones, they think there's little DJI drones that you can buy from like JB Hi-Fi or things like that in Australia. But there are, yeah, a lot of practical applications, and a lot of the commercial ones people never see. They don't understand the size of them as well. And there are quite large ones. I know there's ones you can use for farming that are quite large in agricultural purposes that hold liquid tanks to spray things, and firefighting drones and all different sort of things.
Well, let's talk about agriculture because that's quite a big, application outside mining, oil and gas, and defense. So agriculture is one of the bigger ones. And you mentioned DJI. Now, DJI have 70% of the global drone market. It's a Chinese company. That's hard, yes. And they are, without shadow of doubt, the best company, right, for drones. So they do make them small ones, but they're the same ones who make the 150 kilo drone, right, that carries 100 liters of chemical, right? So basically what we do is for agriculture, we use two drones. We have a small drone that you can put in the palm of your hand, but it has a special camera called multi-spectral. We fly a paddock with that, and that tells us where the weeds are, where the problems are. And look, in reality, with crops, you've got only two or three things that can be wrong. It could be a lack of water, could be a lack of fertilizer, or there's a pest, right? And that multispectral camera picks that. And it also says, for instance, in this square meter, you've got 100 plants. In this square meter, you only got 20, right? And it gives you the location. So you very quickly realize, well, what is it that's wrong? And now drones will tell you whether it's lack of fertilizer or water or it's a pest. So you then when you land that aircraft, you take the SIM card out of that, you put it into the large 150 kilogram drone that's got 100 liters of, say, chemicals, and it will literally just go and fly across and spray only the parts, say for instance of the weeds, or if it was a pest, it will only spray that area. That's called precision, farming. Because in the past, what they would have to do is get a crop duster and do the whole paddock. Right? Now, one of the biggest costs for farmers is chemicals, right? Whether it's fertilizer or herbicides or whatever it is. So by doing precision farming, they are saving themselves a lot of time. That's number one. Number two, it doesn't matter. The best time for people to spray, farmers to spray, and that's farmers telling you this, is after rain. Now, you try to put a tractor onto a paddock, right? You make a mess of the paddock anyway, and then you're killing a lot of, crop under the wheels. Whereas with the drone, it literally flies and goes and does that, right? But same drones, I'm glad you mentioned that large drone, because we now, as a company, using that to help mining companies rehabilitate their mines. So one of the agreements the mining company makes, and they're given permission, but they have to have a plan to do it, is to any area that they disturb, they have to return to its original condition. So now drones go in and they capture how it looks like today, and they can tell what plant, flora, fauna is. And then every year, as the mine moves, because it doesn't do the whole mine in one go, they have to reclaim that. So we then go back and they prepare the land. And then what we do as drone pilots is we use them larger drones then to plant trees and
Okay.
shrubs.
Didn't know you could do
So
that.
what would take, yeah, well, what would, first of all, a lot of mines are not on flat, right, to start with. Best season, as I said, the best time to seed is after a rainy season. Now you try putting a tractor up a hill, it's not going to happen, right? So what we do is we get them to prepare the area before the rainy season. And then as soon as the rains happen, we send a team of people up there, and in a day, we can do 10 hectares in a day, maybe 20, depending on. And we now can fly swarms. In other words, one pilot can fly 5 drones that are carrying 100 liters of chemicals, right? So it's absolutely, massive. It's a technology that just keeps moving.
Yeah, and then that's the software in the drone that's supporting that. Especially in those swarms, there's probably a mesh network connecting, they're communicating with each other to keep distance and flight patterns and sequences. And then on the larger ones, yeah, where you're taking the memory card from the small one to the larger one, that's all software driven.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what is happening. And this is where AI is now coming in, making it even bigger. If I just go back to the theater of war, and it has totally transformed it. I mean, if you look at the investment in the US, President Trump has just allocated $5 billion, right, just to drone technology. What they're trying to do is remove DJI, and they've made rules and regulations, right? But the challenge with the Americans is they left it too late. And look, better late than never, but they are doing it now. So, in a nutshell, there's $5 billion that the government's put in, but the private industry is putting probably 10 times that. And so they've been developing drones, and now this big push. So you will have organizations that are manufacturing drones, both for defense and for retail, and agriculture and all the other applications in the US. So look, whether in 2 to 3 years' time DJI will have 70%, I don't think so. I think they'll probably go down to 50, but 50 is still a massive market. Uh, and so look, that defense industry is where there's a major focus. So if you look at Ukraine, everybody's rushing now to Ukraine from a defense perspective because they've got 4 or 5 years of experience, right? And what you're seeing is just a $400 drone with a camera on the front, some FPV goggles, and a young kid that is very good at playing games. Is a super pilot, right? So what they're getting is, a young man to train the soldiers, and they're sat in a nice, comfortable container somewhere, and they could be, hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away, but mostly in the Ukraine, it's hundreds of kilometers away. And what they've done is they've got a $400 drone with a bomb on it, with a camera at the front. You've got these experts, it's called FPV, first person view. And literally they sat in the cockpit and they take that drone, and the what they do is rather than have every drone carrying a multi-spectral or a thermal camera, they just get one at the front that has a swarm of about 100 behind them. And the first one's actually got camera and a thermal camera on it as well. So they detect heat, whether that's humans or it's an engine in a tank, and then it literally through AI tells the swarm behind it to go left, right, wherever, right? And so a $400 drone is knocking out, right, $4 million tank or people carrier and things like that.
That discrepancy there was what a lot of the feedback that we were seeing on the news about the America in Iran. It's a $30,000 drone taking out a multi-million-dollar jet, and then America's using $1 million missiles to knock out a $30,000 drone.
Exactly.
The numbers don't add up. So I understand now why they're committing such a large investment into more drone tech, but somewhere along the lines, it's funny that no one took into account those numbers.
Well, that's right, and to be honest, because it kind of crept up on us over the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the Ukraine war started, um, both sides were using off-the-shelf DJI drones, right? And we saw some of that with ISIS and other places, literally strapping a grenade to it and then sending it off, right? And because they don't want it to return, you just double the distance. Because normally what you're looking for is I can get this drone to go to 4 or 5 kilometers that way, but I need to bring it back. So I have to have enough battery to do that. Now they don't want to bring it back. They just want it to, do its job. And so there's so many sensors now and they're so cheap. So how have we done that? How has the industry grown so fast in the drone industry and then it's gone into military? It all starts with the military. The military is what actually brings and utilizes technology and then it cascades down, right? So when I first started, doing training drone pilots or getting into the drone industry, the research I did literally showed that drones were only being used by the military. This is going back, 10, 15 years. If you look, the large drones that can fly with a small diesel engine for 7 days, 10 days, you know,
Yeah, like the Reaper drones you hear that the CIA was using in multi-kilometer high surveillance only.
exactly. And the interesting thing is the little diesel engine for that is made here in Perth, right?
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
By an organization called Orbital Engine Company, and I know them well because of my diesel engine expertise. And so nobody realized that how that then could make into day to day, and change the theater of war. But basically, what found was that yes, drones were being used by military. They were costing millions of dollars, and they're shrouded in secrecy. And then along came the smartphone, which we, all of us have one or two. And why do I mention the smartphone? Because that was the catalyst. And the reason I say that is that what the smartphone did, it miniaturized all these components like, GPS and cameras and sensors. So instead of the drone industry manufacturing or designing or developing these components, all they literally did was take these components, because of the billions of them, the cost was so small, and then to put them into a drone, right? So that's where the technology, and even today, it's exactly the same. It's a phone technology, right? That miniaturizing components and sensors, and the drone industry is using.
Yeah, and then the efficiency in the processors, the uptake of the processor compared to the Intel or the x86 architecture is what's now prevalent everywhere. The ARM architecture on every mobile device in the world. The miniaturization of that, the thermal performance, the efficiency, the memory, and then I sort of think it's now AI has probably brought the prices back up and made it a bit more challenging. Just because in the last couple of years, it's now more, all right, how much memory can we grab? And that's restricting probably everything else.
Well, you're absolutely right. But one of the things that's doing that is that industry is changing as well. And we're using things like LiDAR, which are data dense. So, give you an example, a normal drone, if I wanted to just take some images of a mine site, I can get that with, say, a gigabyte. But what now the mine site doesn't want just images, right? It wants a 3D digital model. And what it's like today, go back in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months, fly the same flight which you've kept, And then it can tell you what the difference is in that piece of equipment. Has it been damaged? Is it rust? Or is it in good condition? But that makes it 10 times more data dense, right? So that's is exactly what you're saying. So then you got new technology that, from an accuracy point of view, a standard photogrammetry drone would get you product that will give you 2-3 centimeter accuracy. Then you get LiDAR, right? And LiDAR suddenly takes it to 1 millimeter accuracy, which basically boils down to more data, right? So that's where it is. And look, every organization is now trying to get better computers. I mean, 3 years ago, there was this request to get more quality 4K, 8. Now they do 8K, screens, right? And so, look, it's technology's moving. AI is definitely helping to make the data dense because we're capturing a lot more. But on the other side, we started using AI in our business probably about 2 years ago. Simple things like ChatGPT and things like that. And then I realized, again, a bit like I did with the drones, that this is a technology that's really going to transform the world. So what I did is, in our strategy meeting, I said to people, look, I'm a little bit dangerous at the moment. And they said, why? I said, well, I know a little bit about, AI now. And so, but I want to use AI in our business, right? And I says, and at that time, 2 years ago, I was 70 years of age, and I wasn't going to go on learn everything new. Anyway, I won't bore you with the details, but we took on an AI specialist, bit of a background like yourself. He's got a degree in computer science, and so he joined us and he led that team. Now we've got 3 people in that business. And so what we're doing is we're very lucky that we have a company like Global Drone Solutions where it's same as many other businesses. So the problems that we have, every other business has. I'll give you an example. How do we get more leads? And then when the leads come in, how do you grade them leads, right? And then how do you respond to these people? And I'll give you a very good example of that. So we do a lot of marketing and we get roughly about 150 leads a week. They all don't come in on a Monday. So you might get 40, 50 on a Monday, and then the rest trickle through 10, 20, whatever. So we've automated a lot of our software without AI. And then along this, technology comes along and say, well, how can it improve it even further? So what we do now is as soon as somebody hits uh, enter on one of our Facebook or Google adverts, they're automatically sent a full-page document explaining what the options are to get a drone pilot's license and so on, pricing, why they should use Global Drone Solutions. But then takes that data, puts it into the phone number and everything else into our CRM system. So when the sales guy comes in, he doesn't have to manually do anything. It does it. So he knows that the base data has already gone out. Now he's got 30 leads. So it picks up the phone and starts making them calls. But how do you tell which one is ready to buy and which ones is just a tire kicker? So what we now use AI for is, as soon as saying, for instance, you inquired, Anthony, soon as you put your phone number and contact details in, we have an army of bots that are checking out all social media platforms for you. What do you do? What's your background, so on and so forth, right? What we're looking for is our biggest clients are people who are surveyors. It doesn't matter whether that's in mining, construction, oil and gas, whatever it is. It's a very useful tool for us as surveyor. So first thing it does is, we've got 5 surveys out of these 30. Okay, well, they go to the top of the list. But then at the same time, what it does, it searches them 5 guys and see if they've been on our website. And if they've been on our website, what page, how much time they spent. And suddenly what we do get is that grading. So somebody's actually been on the website even last night, you spent 10 minutes there or 15 minutes, those are pages you looked at. And then the next one, well, it's been on the website, but only spent 5 minutes and so on. And the last person of the surveyors hasn't been on our website. So now we know there are people ready to buy because they spent 15, 20 minutes on our website. So what we've done is through using AI, we've actually doubled the closure, right? So where in the past we may make 10 calls and then literally get, one, booking, we now get 2 and 3 bookings, right? So that's why I mentioned earlier, our business has grown by 30-40% this year. And part of it is to do with drones being on news all the time. But I think part of it also is through the automation in AI and our better grading system, right? So, but I could give you lots of examples how, we've used the AI in our business to improve processes. Our ultimate aim at the start was, because you have to take your team along with it as well. And what I basically said, look, we want to double our business this year from January to December, and we're well on plan to do that without taking on more people, right? So we have taken more people on, but them people are in the AI business. So we've taken on now got 3 people in the AI business, right? All with the same qualification, computer science degree from UWA, which is one of the best, universities in Australia and around the world, to be honest. And but what we've done, we picked people with front end expertise, back end expertise, and security. Right. What we're doing is built a small team, but they have different skills, but certain qualifications. And so in our business, we're using AI to for lots of other things. So I'll give you an example. After we get a lot of inquiries, people asking the same questions. Look, to be honest, no matter what business you're in, I have time, because of my age, I can tell you that roughly people ask the same 20 questions, right? It doesn't matter what business is, right? So we now built an avatar that when you call us after 4 o'clock, our offices, my team finish at 4. I'm still here till 5:30, 6 o'clock, but that's because I enjoy what I do. But the answer, it gets answered by a bot, and the bot says, "Hey, look, I'm Clint from Global Drone Solutions. I am a bot, but I am clever. So do you want to test me?" All right. So we throw a bit of a funny joke at the person, right?
Yeah, you bring it up front. You don't hide the fact.
No, we don't. And then what we do is initially we found it a bit difficult in that some people would put the phone down, but others who have tried and said, "Oh, can you get Sean to give me a call?" Who's our BDM? And with minutes, it sends that message off to Sean, and Sean gives them a call because Sean's one of them young guys that I won't say doesn't have a life. Of course, he has a life, right? But he's on a commission, so he picks the guy, answers the phone, and gets the deal. So we use it for that, and plus many other things.
Yeah, and that's a practical use of AI and understanding how to utilize it. It's not what a lot of people have done, which is just put a chatbot on the website and now they're AI enabled. It's very different to say you're AI first and then to actually be AI first.
Totally agree, Anthony. And to be honest, what's given me lots of confidence in our ability in this new business is that we're the ideal sort of organization. We train roughly about 100 drone pilots a month. 50% of them are on one of our 2 options. Option one is you come to us on a Monday, finish on a Friday. It's a 5-day course. Alternatively, you can do part of it online, right? And try to explain how it all works. And look, over the 10 years, the reason we've got to be so big is that we offer a lot more value. So rather than just getting a drone pilot's license, I realized after about 2 years of training people that some of the people coming to us are from large mining companies, say Rio Tinto, BP, Shell or Chevron, but there's a portion of people who might be motor mechanics or bricklayers, but the bricklayer comes to us because he says, he's in his 40s, he realizes his back's not going to, keep doing what he's doing, but he now sees drones on construction sites and wants to get involved. And so, we've got that sort of person, but that person has no expertise in sales, marketing, or anything like that. So we as a business realize that. So we put a package together, which we give people, it's valued at $3,000 because that's what it cost me to put together. But sales scripts, whether it's on the phone, email, terms and conditions, nobody writes terms and conditions because it's a boring, thing to do. But we prepare all that for you. We give them tender documents, have to complete tender documents or proposals. So there's a whole package there. And then recently, last year, what me and my operations manager did, we brought a company in and we videoed for an hour how we set up global drone solutions and what they need to do, how to go and get clients, and so on and so forth. What we're finding now through AI, though, what used to take us days and weeks, we can literally do in a half an hour, right? And it's our business is all about how do you add value. We don't want to, we're the most expensive training company, right? Why? Because we add so much more value, right? We might be $200 more than our competitor, on a $3,000 package, but we offer $3,000 to $4,000 worth of free training that other people don't, right? We've ended up with about 382 five-star Google reviews, right? With the most awarded, I think we've got about 25 different awards over the 10 years for different, things. Again, it's more to do with customer service and things like that. We also, as a business, I'm a big believer in karma. So, last year we gave charities about $114,000. We're on target to do 120 this year. So the charities are World Vision, um, Doctors Without Borders, and places like that. Because again, we do really well. And my background, being born in a very poor country and a poor environment, I know the challenges that people have, right? So, it's about pulling people up through the ladder rather than just climbing all above yourself and leaving everybody else behind. And that's just a cultural thing. Like I said, I could retire. I've tried 2 or 3 times. I can't. So I'm not driven by money, and that shows in our business. We offer a fantastic package, value for money, and then the whole range of support to make sure that people are successful.
And I think that shows through in the way you're talking about it and the passion behind it. And it's amazing that you can continue to do that and not just sit down. It's
Yeah. Well,
there's something else that's driving you, and it's amazing to see then that you can contribute like that back to the community.
yeah. Well, look, thank you, Anthony. And look, the whole idea is and I think, I've got grandchildren now, and they they don't see the challenges that older generations had, right? It's not just me. I mean, if you look at most people in their 60s and 70s, majority of them went through a very, very difficult period, right? But then they got stuck in, and they worked hard, and they've done really, really well. And to be honest, one of the best things I did, I know what the best thing my father did was take us to the UK, and I will be eternally grateful to the UK. But then the best thing I've done for my children, and that's what they tell me, is bring them to Australia, right? And we're so grateful for all the opportunities that we've been given here. And I've been here now 28 years, 28 and a half years, as a matter of fact. But there's so many opportunities, in this country. But the key to it is, how do you help other people, right? And to be honest, part of that setting up the drone business was, yes, I needed something to do, but there's many things I could do and turn my hands to. But the beauty about training drone pilots is we're giving people opportunities that they would normally not have, right? A bricklayer is not going to get an opportunity like this. A motor mechanic is not going to get that sort of opportunity. Now what we've done, an average salary for a drone pilot is over $100,000. If you work for the mining companies, it could be $200,000, right? And flying not. But the beauty about it is then people actually get, enough funds to live a good life, bring up a good family, and they invest in the local community, cafes, restaurants, bars, schools, all that happens. And that's where the big picture that I see. And also what we do is we signed an agreement. Uh, I'll tell you this story. After about 2 years, my wife said to me, well, it's all good, the business is going well, but you said you were going to help other people. Yes, you're helping the local people, but what about all these people, from third world countries? My wife's Italian, by the way. Right?
Okay.
So she understands, the challenges. Anyway, I said, well, I've tried my best, but I can't. We're a small company in Western Australia, right? What can we do? She said, well, you're just not trying hard enough, right? So anyway, like I said, you believe in karma. Suddenly I saw this post on LinkedIn of a company that sets up drone training academies in third world countries, right? And it's called We Robotics. And so what happens is when normally a disaster happens, countries like Australia and US and others will send some people, and they were sending drone pilots, but after 4 weeks, they all bring out all that, technology back, and the poor locals are left with nothing. We Robotics helps set up and establishes networks and pilot training and other technology training there. So what we do is we train probably about 50 pilots a year for free for them through our online training material, right? And so what we now, when we first started with them, they had 10 locations, mainly all in Africa. Now they've got probably 40 locations all over the world, right? And so whenever they get a new group of people, we train them to be trainers, right? So not only train them to get the RPL, saying, okay, well, this is how you would then train other people below you. So what we're doing is, yes, we're training a pilot, but training him to be an instructor, and then they
Yeah,
cascade
and
down.
you can affect more people and try and improve the lives of more.
Yeah,
It's an amazing story, and I love the passion that you have for trying to help and actually spreading that around and not just keeping it like to yourself. And it's a testament to not being able to stop, I think, and having that drive.
yeah. Look, I think I'm very lucky. I'm touching my head. That's a typical English thing to do. Touch wood, right? And yeah, I've got health and I've got drive, and the biggest passion I've got is people, right? I get, I'm an extrovert, so I get all my energy from people. And look, something else I've used in business, and I was trained, or I came across this Scottish guy who told me this, and he said, look, the people are afraid of rejection, right? So, when you go and talk to somebody to try to get, some business, they may turn around and say no. He says, but use that as a training thing. Okay, well, what is it? Maybe they didn't have a requirement. Maybe they wasn't the right time for them. They don't have the funding. What is it? But all that aside, you've just made a new friend. And I thought, that's so true. So for the last 40 odd years, I've been using that, so I'll talk to somebody, it takes all the pressure away because end of the day, even if we don't do business, I've just found a new friend, right? And we keep in touch with people. And to be honest, my business has grown simply because I can call people up and say, hey, listen, I don't have a contact in this business. Do you have anybody or do you know somebody who would have that contact? And because I've helped them in the past, they go out their way to help me, right? So that's makes it so much easier. And now we've trained over 8,000, drone pilots in the last 10 years. And a lot of them are in key positions, right? They're chief pilots for the mining companies, oil and gas companies, water corporation, defense. And so it's very easy now. That's how it's that snowball effect.
Yeah, the network grows.
The network grows, they get into senior positions, and because they had a good experience with Global Drone Solutions, they come back to Global Drone Solutions, right? But I'd like to talk to you about AI and where you think we could, go. And the questions I'm going to ask you, I'm sure that your other community would be interested in it as well. So I get probably 5 or 6 emails every week, if not more, from organizations. Hey, we can set up a bot for you. We can do this and we do that. And I know that either you have to be well, there's 2 options in it. You can either be a user or a creator, and we wanted to be creators, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone and set up a drone business. A lot of your listeners probably are not looking to do that, right? So what advice would you give to somebody that even, and that advice I think is going to be relevant to me as well. How do I grow this AI business, right? We focused on security, so that's one of being one of our biggest things. But how do we grow our AI business? You've been in business for 18 years. In the AI business, we've been in it for 12 months.
I think it comes down to what sort of business are you trying to run? So in your AI business, are you trying to be a product or a new AI enabled platform and a service? Or are you trying to enable others to use AI? Because then there's the service and product stream. And on the service side, it's how do you differentiate from the people that are just selling bots and chatbots? because that's only going to do so much for someone who doesn't understand your business and understand where you're actually trying to go as a business and what your values are and how you want to achieve it. Where if you're trying to be a product, it's that everyone says it's the end of SaaS products, which is the previous model, but that's not the death of it. It's just changing where you've got AI or an agent in the background that can do stuff to support the current workflow. And that's the process you're using. A query comes in, you store it in a CRM. The CRM's not new. It's the agent that can go and search the website, go and search the internet, and then populate more data to enrich that contact. That's the differentiation part. So it really comes down to, yeah, you're looking at a service model with AI or a product model.
Well, look, what I said to my team is, number one, we're looking that we can use AI in the drone business, right? And we can prove it, because a lot of people are coming to me can't prove it, right? So we can prove it, can show the increase and everything else. But our ultimate aim is, that's why we just named it, like I said a couple of days ago, as AI Assist, is to now have that business all on its own, doing its thing, right? And that's approaching other companies and saying, hey, we can help you. We'll probably start with training companies because we've so much experience in that. Not in drones, of course, as my competitors, but all the other training companies, there's thousands of them, to say, hey, listen, this is what we've done with our training company. This is actually given us an extra 2 to 3 days, right? I mean, as an example, we had one product where we help people write an operations manual so they can get an operator's license from, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority. That we do probably about 30 of them every month. So the 100 pilots that we train, about 30 of them want to set up a drone business, so they need an operator certificate. But they're not aviation background. To write a 70 or 80-page document is not easy. So we've been doing that for, probably 7 or 8 years. But it wasn't practically a full-time job for one of our guys. What we've done with AI is yes, it took us 3 months and a couple of people, but they've now got it so that guy's freed up 3 days. So instead of 5 days, that person is only working on that project 2 days, and it's better and more efficient. Our ultimate aim, there's more improvement to be done, is to get it down to half a day, right? So we've literally got 30 hours, of a person's time out of his 35 or 36 hours.
It's the efficiency that you can really capitalize on and then allow your staff to spend time on more high value tasks. Writing documentation is not a high value task, especially when it's like a rinse and repeat manual effectively. There's going to be very few changes, business names and IDs and ABNs, etc. And that's like any SOP. Like they've come so far from ChatGPT being released to now. They're still just writing content, but you can't just use it verbatim and hand that over. So I'm sure his time is now spent reviewing and assessing what's there is correct rather than writing it out from scratch or copying and pasting from different source documents. That's not a fulfilling job for people either.
No, it isn't.
So it's better that if you can give someone a better tool, it's effectively you're giving the carpenter a nail gun instead of a hammer. He'll do the job faster, they'll see outcomes, they'll be able to do time on more fulfilling tasks, and then they'll perform the job better because now they're enjoying what they're doing.
You're absolutely right. And look, we're very lucky in that I've been in an exciting industry. There's new applications coming out all the time. We get different people walk through our door every day, right? Because they're using drones for some new applications. One of the new ones is washing, wash drones. So they're now washing, buildings and things like that. It's very interesting. The last storm that we had in Perth late last year, which was quite a bad one. Actually, my roof started to leak, right? So we had some damage, and the insurance company came out and had a look, and they sending somebody to have a look, do the roof inspection today, right? So this guy calls me this morning and he says, hey, Mahmood, I'm calling to book this time sometime this afternoon. Will you be available? I said, I won't, but my wife will be home. And just as before I was, we agreed a time, right? Before I put the phone down, the natural salesperson in me kind of came out, and I said to him, hey, mate, look, we run a drone pilot training company, right? Have you thought about using drones for roof inspections? He says, is that Global Drone Solution? I says, yeah. He says, well, I've just done all my training courses with you. So the world is now getting, into a place where drones are, becoming everyday.
Oh, it's easier to perform your job again. It's like AI. You can use that, or he could, in 10 years ago, get up on the ladder, climb up on a second-story house, be very cautiously walking around and inspecting tiles, not do the job properly because it's potentially too risky, or he didn't want to spend that much time on there, and then go away with a poor experience for himself, and then a worse decision for the homeowner. Where now it's there. You don't even need to be home. He could just sit in the car in the driveway, launch the drone, do a full scan, spend a bit of time, high resolution images. You'll get more detail than he would have by not doing the full inspection himself anyway.
Absolutely. And that's why I says, well, so do I get reports? He said, well, you'll soon see, the benefit of your training. But the other good thing with it was that he now uses a thermal camera. So with roof leaks, you can't tell. It might be coming in over here, but in your house is over the other end. Well, the thermal camera can actually detect the difference in its dampness, right? So
Yeah, it's using the tools to your advantage to get a better outcome. And he probably enjoys his job better this way than the old way of doing things as well. Again, yeah, if you can give someone a reason to do their job and enjoy it, then they'll do a better job at it.
Yeah, well, the other good thing for him is that, what used to be like, say, half a day per roof, now is literally 15 minutes, right? There's 15 minutes of prep to make sure it's all safe, and then the other 15 minutes is capturing that data. Uploads it, uses AI to upload and detect what the differences are, right? And he's got some algorithms that he's got somebody designed where he can tell where potentially the repair's been done, because that's what they're coming to check. The repair's been done, where it's been done, what the changes have been, and so on. All right, so my next question to you, which I think would be very useful for us and for a lot of other people, is there is still this resistance to change, right? Now, I personally believe that it's either the management are not sharing the information and the reasons behind, introducing AI into their business. But people think that AI is going to take their job. I'm finding that it just gives me more efficiency, right? So I'm not looking to lose people. As you said earlier, I'm trying to give them more fulfilling jobs, right? But still be efficient and grow my business. So how do we overcome some of that resistance that we're going to get from, certainly from larger organizations?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a challenge just with people in general, and that's always been the case. So, a podcast I was listening to a while ago, the term Luddites was invented because there was a group of people who didn't want to have, was it looms? I think the automated looms, instead of people doing that by hand, and they went around and smashed them all. And that's them. They were scared about their jobs being taken away rather than being operators or maintenance people and looking after it. They were scared and protecting themselves, and that's potentially a narrow view, but that's always the case. Like if you look at any social media and start looking at where people are talking about AI coding, there'll be a portion of developers there saying it's not AI, it's not good, it still can't do everything. Where everyone else is then either all the way on the other spectrum saying it's the best thing ever and it does everything, or people in the middle saying, yeah, it does well, but you have to review, you have to monitor, you have to check things. So I don't necessarily think it's a problem where the organization isn't explaining the purpose or the benefit properly, because there's still going to be people that are fearful of it, regardless of how rational you make the explanation.
Yeah, I know people don't like change. I mean, we have the same problem with Nick.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah, it is. Um, Look, and to be honest, the other thing I'm finding is that it's a first world problem. So developed countries, people are more resistant to change, whereas, you know, third world countries or emerging countries where, well, this tool can do this for me, well, I'll give it a go, right? I mean, I remember.
That's probably a level of comfort that we have here.
Yes, yes, and look. Also, we're protective of the roles, especially if we like that role, right? They don't realize that you can actually make it a lot more satisfying, right? So you're working on a high value component of your work rather than, as you said, writing, a manual, right? And it was a template that we had, and all the rest of it.
Mahmood, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have a chat to a stranger. For those of you that want to find out more about Global Drone Solutions or Assist AI, when you're ready to talk about that? How can they do that?
Very easy. If you go on to website, just go to gdronesolutions.com or put Global Drone Solutions, and we come up. We're on the front page. And AI Assist, well, that's so new.
Yeah, we'll add it all to the show notes, and when we release the episode, it will be live.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. I found it very, very helpful and useful. And thanks for having me on.
Right, I appreciate it, and nice to meet you.
Same here. Look after yourself. Bye bye.
Bye.